Supporting the Seahawks, signing wide receiver and kick returner Laviska Shenault. The former second-round pick of the Jaguars spent the past 2 seasons with the Panthers. This has been NFL Network Now on the Westwood One Radio Network.
Getting your biggest tax refund from Jackson Hewitt can lead to some spirited reactions.
Jackson Hewitt!
Jackson Hewitt is so sure they'll get you your biggest refund that if they don't, you get your money back plus $100.
Jackson Hewitt!
Switch to Jackson Hewitt and we'll beat what you paid last year, even if you filed online.
Hewitt!
Ain't nothing to it. Switch to Jackson Hewitt and pay less for tax prep, guaranteed. Proof of prior year payment required when filing. New clients only at participating locations through April 7th. Terms at jacksonhewitt.com.
On the battlefield, there's a saying America's military men and women live by. Never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Off the battlefield, Wounded Warrior Project operates with the same goal. Wounded Warrior Project was created to help our men and women returning home with the scars of war, whether those scars are physical or mental. Wounded Warrior Project. We never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Learn more about what we do at woundedwarriorproject.org.
Now, from Wichita's most listened to sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH. This is Sports Daily with Jacob Albracht and Tommy Castor.
All right, welcome in, everybody, to a midweek edition of Sports Daily. Jacob Albracht with you. Paul Savage in. Tommy Castor will join us in just a little bit. Full house today and good timing because a massive story has developed now up in the Kansas City area as it pertains to the Chiefs and Royals. We will get into the failed vote last night, certainly, as we make our way through the program today. Not happy, I would imagine, for a lot of Chiefs and Royals fans, but the vote was resounding. We'll get into that. We'll get into the Royals on the field as well as starting pitching just continues to deliver for this team, which has been a really, really nice thing to see early in the season. We can begin to look ahead a little bit to the Final Four matchups if we get time. A lot to get into today. Movement on the KU basketball roster that we need to talk about as well today. As a key returner makes it official that he'll be back, and KU lands another really nice player in the transfer portal. So we'll get into all of this as we make our way through today. We have a lot to give away today. We're going to give away a 4-pack of Windsor baseball vouchers. It's opening day this week. We got a Friday, Saturday, Sunday set. These vouchers are good, of course, for any game, as they are to continue the tradition here on Sports Daily. We'll give these vouchers you can use them for any home game that you like. We'll give away some HTO, iced tea, and coffee. A lot of things to get through today, Paul. Glad to have you in on a busy day like this. How are you this morning?
I am great. And by the way, let me just get this out of the way right now. Rocco and I had to go up to the northeast part of Wichita to go to a couple sporting goods shops, stores, you know, if you know what I mean. And anyway, while we're up there, we get done. You know what we decided to do? We go by HTO, buddy boy. We go through the drive-through. We didn't go in, but we went to the drive-through. I got, you'd be proud of me. I got a black coffee. Rocco got, I believe it was a raspberry tea. I don't know if it was sweetened or what. I didn't pay attention. I think that's what he got. So anyway, Joe Rocco and I, we really enjoyed HTO. What was it? Last Friday, I believe. It was a lot of fun. What a great place. Golly, you got to go. If you haven't ever been there, you got to go. It's unbelievable.
Appreciate the support
the
there,
quality
Paul,
is just unbelievable.
Right.
It's the quality
and the service. Oh, I mean, my goodness.
I've told you this before.
My goodness, I'm telling you.
Well, you've got the nicest young kids. You got the nicest.
I'll tell my wife. I'll tell my wife.
All right, there you go. Anyway, I wanted to throw that out and get it started.
We'll give some of that. Away to you a little bit later in the show.
Yeah,
Paul, there's a big vote last night. It did not go the way I suspected it would. I was way off. Now, we warned people that we're not up there, so we're looking at this bird's eye. Now, I thought when they conceded some of the money, when the Chiefs got involved more publicly, and when the Royals went out and signed Bobby Witt Jr. to his big deal, that this was probably going to go through. I was way wrong because it was not even close. the no to the sales tax extension, which is what is required to build the new Royals downtown ballpark and all the renovations to Arrowhead Stadium, failed. 17% more to the no. I mean, Paul, not even close. Not even close.
Yeah.
And so now you go back to the drawing board, and all of those things we've wondered about are back on the table. Look, I'm surprised by this, but I do think holistically it is time for billionaire owners to stop trying to get the public to foot the bill for their stadiums. Unless you want to split the profits, like if the public is funding 60% of this thing, then at the end of the year, just give right back to the county 60% of your profits until, the loan is paid off or whatever, essentially. I'm okay with society pushing back like that. But I think, of course, everything isn't black and white. There's gray area to everything. And the gray area here is there's a threat that the state of Missouri could lose the Chiefs/Royals because they could go across the border to Kansas. The state of Kansas has been salivating at the idea of this. It's why we have sports betting and why that was rammed through, in my opinion, is to entice them, have a better package if this day ever came. Kansas would make some of the public money concessions. And this is where the gray area comes in. I think it would be more, it would make more sense for Kansas, who doesn't have this type of stuff to do that, than, a much bigger city and a city that's under a current lease for 7 more years and just isn't ready to renew this thing without more concessions. So you've got two very different things happening here. Like I'm in part of my brain, I'm ready for, ownership groups to stop getting so much public money to build their stadiums when they're not necessary, right? It's not like Arrowhead or Kauffman are falling apart, Paul. Like they're fine. So a part of me likes that. And then the other part of me is like, boy, but if they came to Kansas, I probably would be a supporter of some public money going to that. So I get torn on this one specifically, but I am stunned that vote went that way.
Right. And I can remember, I believe it was just maybe 2 weeks ago that Bobby Witt was signed. What about does that sound about right? About 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, a little longer than that.
A little longer than 3
that,
weeks, 4 weeks,
yeah.
whatever it was. I remember you talking about it on this very show with me with regards to, you thought that the signing of Bobby Witt.
Thought that'd be the icing on the cake.
That's exactly what you said. And I remember you thinking that. And I remember thinking to myself, well, hold on a second. It's icing on the cake, but also Bobby Witt's not a bad baseball player, if you get my drift. So I felt what you were saying. And with the way this came, let me give you my initial thought when I heard the news that the Royals had some problems with getting the financing for this stadium. My first thought was Oakland A's. I don't know if that's the right thought or not, but that was my first thought.
No,
Oakland.
I mean, the thought is interesting
hold on,
because they've got a mess on their hands now too with Vegas and Oakland and all that.
Yeah, but my first thought was Oakland A's because the Oakland A's have been dissatisfied with where they are for a long time. The Royals are a little dissatisfied. And by the way, Oakland's moving to Las Vegas, and it would be the same thing in a like effect moving to the state of Kansas. I mean, that's and part of this is I think.
But
go ahead.
Royals fans wouldn't lose the Royals in that sense. They'd have to drive right across the border to go to a game.
Yeah,
they've already got to drive. Look, here's the interesting part. If they came to Kansas, it wouldn't affect fans of either team, right? Because you're still right there. I mean, it's a 20-minute difference? Like it's not, that wouldn't really impact a whole lot of anything as far as being a fan. Now, I think this is where this has gotten really interesting. It's because, if I read the room correctly, it's like one particular county sits here and foots the bill for something the entire region gets to enjoy. And it's like, we don't want to do that anymore, especially when you're asking us to pay the vast majority of this again, like we've already paid that, portion for everybody else to get this. So if I'm in Jackson County and I'm, not a big fan of either franchise, It's like, why do I care if they go over across? I'm still going to watch them. I can still go to games, but I don't have to foot the bill for it.
Right.
And that's where this one's really interesting because why does Jackson County have to solely pay for that? I mean, isn't there a way if you're Mayor Lucas to contribute from all the surrounding counties somehow? I don't know. But of course, he doesn't have any jurisdiction over any county. But I don't know where this is going to go because I don't think people care in general terms if they came across the border to Kansas because it doesn't affect their fandom at all.
Well, and I think you're exactly right in what you're saying. If they move over to Kansas, nothing changes. I mean, for gosh sakes, how many great Kansas City Chiefs and Kansas City Royal fans live on the other side of the border? I mean, come on, tons and tons. So that's not
Paul, it's not like if you're in Missouri and the Chiefs moved and played next to Sporting KC, you'd stop being a Chiefs fan.
No, you
you'd
wouldn't.
Stop going to the games.
No, you wouldn't.
You wouldn't care.
No, you wouldn't. You would not. And particularly with NFL football, you're not going to. That's not going to change. The problem is right now is that there's a certain amount of what's the right word I'm looking for? There's a certain amount of so interest in the Royals. I mean, we've seen the stadium on numerous occasions where there's a lot of empty seats. Sometimes I wonder just exactly what it is with regards to how deep is the love of the Royal. It's certainly not the same thing as the Kansas City Chiefs, is it?
No, not even close. Jad, what you've got something on this? Jad, what's on your mind on this?
Well, the idea of it moving across to Kansas has had just a little bit of an addition to the conversation thrown into it, because of course everybody's been talking about that land that Schlitterbahn used to be on. That's over there by Village West, right next to the NASCAR park. But earlier this year, a very large portion of that open land sold. And we have a new buyer who had a new idea for it. Mattel, the toy company, actually purchased a large portion of that land and was going to put an amusement park on it. It's a Mattel Adventureland or something like that.
Yeah.
And of course, Mattel hasn't even started building that, so they could turn around and sell it to whoever and make a big profit without having to put a single dollar into it. But that does mean that it's going to be more expensive for whoever wants it.
Well, this is a standoff. I don't remember anything like this. Because there's no threat that like the Chiefs and the Royals, at least as far as I know, leave the region, right? Like it's not like the Royals are going to move to Nashville.
They've talked about it over the years several times.
Well, right. But I don't think that's
All right.
Now. But so you've got like this. This is a standoff here. This is going to be interesting because the Chiefs aren't going anywhere. I don't know about the Royals. I don't know if they would ever go that far down the road. The Chiefs can move around and still operate as they would. The Chiefs can sit here and just say, well, we're just going to go find the area that'll contribute the most money to our project. The most money, the less money, the smallest amount of money that comes out of our pocket. But I think when you see a resounding vote like that, like Jackson County's taking a stand here and saying, put more money in. So what is that going to be? Are the Chiefs going to now come back to the table and the Royals and say, all right, fine, we'll pay for half of this project? Because I think right now it's like $300 million and $600 million. We'll pay half. Is that enough? In a 17% difference in the vote, I don't think it is. Like, I don't think if they came back and said, we'll pay for half, that's going to make, that big a difference for that many people to say, okay, now we're on board with this. I think this is a bigger stand of like, we're not going to pay for your stadium. Pay for it yourself, which societally needs to happen to some degree. The Chiefs can just go across the board. Kansas would do anything it could. I mean, there's not a politician in the state who hasn't not made that abundantly clear that I've heard. Like, we would do what we need to do to get the Chiefs to come across the board. Because that's a different, now you're talking about one of the great exports of the state of Kansas, if you're talking about Chiefs football.
Right.
Royals are in a different boat. Nobody wants the Royals as bad as they want the Chiefs. That's the reality of this thing. Royals are trying to build a new stadium downtown. Okay. So now it makes me wonder if Jack, because the area is still Jackson County, does the city of Kansas City, Missouri, step in and try and do something across different counties from a city level. I just don't know where it's easier for me to imagine what the Chiefs options are than what the Royals options are.
Right.
Let's go to the KFH hotline, get one in. We'll continue this conversation, but we'll get a call in here before the break. Anthony on the line. What's up, Anthony?
Well, you're talking Chiefs, and I keep hearing Royals sprinkled in there. And my theory has always been the Royals just need to stay put until they get a better product. Because my theory on that is, why build something and you don't have nothing on the inside to show for it? That's always been my theory with the Royals.
Well,
that's every team. Oakland's everybody wants a new stadium.
Right.
I mean, they don't.
Well, and that's
Chiefs, so
go ahead.
with the Chiefs, so that's a different ball game. I mean, first of all, where would they go? And if any team is worthy of a new stadium between the Chiefs and the Royals, it would be the Chiefs. But why? I mean, I know they voted against the tax hike, but why?
It's not a tax hike; it's a tax extension.
Right.
It's an extension of the existing
extension.
tax.
Well, you know how some people look at it; they say they're just trying to get more money out of the citizens. But at the same token, why move away from what is one of the most intimidating home stadiums? I mean, when you say Chiefs, you think Arrowhead and these new acronyms that they got, as a business name. But when you think Chiefs football, you think Arrowhead Stadium, the most intimidating place between that place and where Seattle plays. Those are your two most daunting places for visitors to come. So why build a stadium and why move from what is really your home in essence? So I would hate to see the Chiefs move from that place.
It's a good question. Appreciate it, Anthony. Right before we have the break here, I think they'd move because they think they can make more money in a new stadium.
Mm-hmm.
The Cowboys left an iconic stadium. The Yankees left an iconic stadium. Teams don't care about that.
Right.
I mean, they pretend they care about that. They want to go get a new stadium and make lots of money.
Well, that's
why they moved.
Well, that's I mean, look at the Chargers. There's tons of examples of.
Well, not that Qualcomm was a historic place, but you know what I mean. Like,
yes,
there
I know
are places
no, you're
that
right. No, you're right.
There are a few examples where what the Chiefs were trying to do, which is a massive renovation. Right there, that's what the Packers did, and that's what the Bears did. And now there's rumors that the Bears might want to move again out to the suburbs because they want the technology, they want the luxury suites, they want all the things that are going to make them more money, and they want you to pay for it.
Well,
that's what the voters said no to yesterday. I mean, basically,
that's the American way.
We'll get into it. What are the options then for these teams? Because it absolutely fascinates me. We'll get into that. We do need to talk about this KU roster movement, too. Maybe we'll hit this KU news next. And then as Tommy joins us, we'll get back into this discussion. 869-1240 is your number to call on it. I want to remind you that mornings here at KFH, the staff's enjoying a great cup of coffee from Prairie Fire Coffee. Paul's got his in hand, as always,
right here,
as we make
baby.
our way through. Appreciate the support of Prairie Fire for keeping us fueled up there in the studios. We'll be right back. More Sports Daily right after this. ESPN Bet is ready to take you through all the huge sports moments this spring. The exclusive sports book of ESPN has it all, including exclusive offers and promotions from Scott Van Pelt and Stephen A. Smith. From the playoff intensity to getting on the links and out to the ballpark, there's no better time to be sports fans. Sign up today and new users get $100 in bonus bets for making any sportsbook bet. Download ESPN Bet today. What a play. Must be 21 plus. Gambling problem. Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In partnership with Hollywood Casino at Kansas Speedway. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details. I took some swings at a couple baseball bets yesterday, Paul, and it did not go my way.
Dang it. I hate it when that happens. Hey, by the way, can I ask you a question? Just in this, you don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but as much play as women's college basketball in the NCAA tournament with for the women is going, golly, I'm finding myself, I watched the whole second half of the Iowa LSU game the other night. I even watched it all the way through so I could see if they shook hands. And they did. Nothing happened. I thought something might happen. I didn't know. But anyway, are you placing any bets on college women's basketball?
I have. Yeah, I was riding I was riding the K-State women a little bit earlier in the tournament. Now, I didn't in the regular season, but I have a little bit in the tournament. Right now, North Carolina State, if you're looking at the women's Final Four, is getting 11.5 points. Right. Connecticut is getting 2.5 against Iowa. So I would sort of, if I was to, and I will eventually get to those bets, I think later this week, I would probably take South Carolina to cover. And I'd probably take Connecticut on the money line would be where I'd go there, even though, I don't want the Caitlin Clark story to go. I kind of like Connecticut, UConn there. Right. So, that's where I'd go there. If I'm looking at baseball, yesterday, Paul, Ken asked, he's ready for me to talk about, betting against the Royals bullpen, which I did. I took the over in that game. They got another great start. It wasn't a bet against Marsh. The starter who I know absolutely nothing about, who has some, great job last night. It was bet against bullpen, and a bet and a tip of the cap to the Royals, offense, which did its part. But the bullpen was good last night. You look at Marsh, he went 7 innings, only allowed 2 hits and gave up a run. That was fantastic. Their starting pitching, and we'll get to this in the second hour, continues to be great. But Will Smith got the job done. I'm very nervous about Will Smith. He will get the job done at times this year. There's no question. But he makes me worried. Schreiber, however, continues to be great. Still hadn't given up a run this year. Gives another hold last night. So the bullpen was really good last night. Love it. Love to see it. They've got a tall task today, Paul. If you want to go back with Cole Reagans, right now the Royals plus 150 on the money line going against one of the best in the business, Corbin Burns. I might stay away from that one today. There's not really any of the Royals game that I'm into. If I was to take a swing at it, I suppose I would just go with the money line there and see if they. But I don't feel very confident in that one. The Royals.
Yeah.
One of the games I missed yesterday. One of the games I missed yesterday was the Rangers on the money line because they were getting plus money. That didn't work out for me. They're getting plus money again behind Nathan Eovaldi tonight in Tampa. I'm going to go right back to that well. I'm going Rangers on the money line again tonight. That's my favorite that I've seen. That's the only one right now that I think that's my play today. I sort of like Seattle minus 1.5 at plus 130 tonight. George Kirby was really good in his opener. But not as much as the Rangers money line. So if I had to give you one play today, that's probably where I'm going over on ESPN Bet, catching a little plus money on the Rangers behind Nathan Eovaldi to see if he can continue his momentum from late season last season. Paul, some big news yesterday for Kansas basketball in a couple of fronts. The first thing we get is the announcement from KJ Adams that he's back. Now, this one's interesting because I think there's a large portion of the Kansas Jayhawk audience out there that probably didn't even know that was a question of whether KJ Adams would return. He has eligibility. He's not an NBA guy. It's KJ Adams. But there was real chatter late in the year, and I don't know how real it was, but KJ Adams was certainly listening to it, that KJ could go because it's just not a good fit with Hunter Dickinson. We talked to our KU insider, at times this year, Shreyas Latta, who wondered the same thing if it was going to be possible. But so KJ Adams says never was leaving, basically saying like it's a done deal, but he still had to come out there and say he was coming back. So now you move forward. We all still assume Hunter Dickinson's coming back based on the things he said, although that's not official. And I don't know if this tells us anything about that, but I think that he'll be back because he'll make more money at Kansas than in the NBA next year. It does leave that, it was a little glaring in the Gonzaga game. So if KJ Adams is back, we still don't know about the two freshmen, Jamari McDowell and Elmarco Jackson. We still don't know about Johnny Furphy. So I suppose it's the three freshmen, although they have different types of decisions to make. KU doesn't have any more spots on the roster because they also brought in a guy I think most people wanted to see them bring in Zeke Mayo. He's from the area there at South Dakota State. And with, their other addition, Kugel from Florida, that's it. Like if everybody else came back, which would be surprising, I think, to a lot of us, that would be that's it. That's your roster. Now that there are at least 4 players we still don't know about. And then I'm curious about what happens with Zach Clemens. But as we look at the roster as it currently stands, and we'll assume everybody's back, those two additions they made, Mayo and Kugel, certainly I think will make them more athletic and solve the problem of depth that they faced last year and athleticism, quite frankly. But is that enough for you as you look at Kansas if you had the exact same team minus Kevin McCullough, minus Timberlake as the meaningful contributors, minus Parker Brown, and plus these 2 transfers that have come in? I don't think that's going to be the end of this. But I don't think KU fans would say that's enough. What says Paul Savage?
Well, I don't think it's enough either. Obviously, there's got to be more done. But I'll tell you what, I don't know that we can emphasize just how big Zeke Mayo is to this basketball team. I don't think we can. I mean, this guy can play basketball at the college level. And
sure.
It's good to see that and when you look at the teams he picked KU over, and there's nothing like coming home a little bit. I mean, really and truly, there's nothing like coming home. And this is home, Lawrence High. We drive every time you're in Lawrence, you can't help but drive by Lawrence High School. And there it is. And here he comes home. Now, this is a kid that averaged 18.8 points a game for South Dakota State. I mean, that's nothing. Listen, The Horizon League or the Summit League is an excellent basketball league. Well, heck, the Summit League is pretty good in football. In certain, you get into the top half of the Summit League in football, it's pretty damn good. But with that being said, here's a kid with 5.7 rebounds, but he's got the body that you look at KU and say, what do you need? You need a guard. You need a point guard with some size. He's 6'4". I'm just telling you, this is a heck of a signing, particularly with him coming home to Lawrence. That says a lot. That shouts out a lot to a lot of other players. I think it would. But this is a big time. This is a big time get. This is a really big time get. I love it. And I think it's going to pay off dividends for the University of Kansas. I am now officially bullish on Kansas basketball for next year.
Yeah, Mayo could be. I agree. And Kugel adds athleticism and I think has a lot of room under Bill Self to grow as a player. But Mayo's a scorer, and Mayo's what they needed. He fills a spot. He probably fits into that 2 spot, maybe a 3. If he can play the 2 and you add him in, basically, can he replace? And he won't replace Kevin McCullough defensively.
Well,
I don't think
that's a lot of people want.
But he can maybe replace the offense, right? And that's what you have to start there. How do you replace McCullough when he was on the floor? Because this team was much better and much different when he was healthy. So can Mayo do that? Can the combination? The thing I like about it is they've gotten deeper. I think, if all of those freshmen came back, you could bet on some growth in at least some of them. Furphy certainly, and then one or both of Elmarko Jackson and Jamari McDowell.
Of course.
I don't know that it makes a lot of sense for Elmarko Jackson and or Jamari McDowell to come back because their role is not going to be big. I don't think next year. Now, if they decide they love it and they're long-term guys, certainly that's an opportunity. But next year, it's hard to imagine the minutes for those two guys growing a ton over what they did this year because I don't think either of them would play over either of the transfers coming in. Maybe they become a bigger part of the rotation, which Kansas needs desperately. Look, if this is the roster, Kansas is going to be very good next year, probably a top 20 team or higher, could be. But I still think they got one more in them. I don't know what that, and it may be a smaller move. They need another big is what they need to spell Dickinson and Adams. And so, is that splashy? I don't know that it needs to be splashy. I don't know that they have room to make it splashy based on, and again, this all assumes that Dickinson is back.
That's a big assumption. We got to make sure. Yeah.
If Dickinson's not back, we're having a totally different conversation.
That would be the case
then.
Yeah.
So I again, though, I would be pretty surprised if he's not, because I don't know what he's going to do. Like, what's Hunter Dickinson going to do if he doesn't come back?
Right.
He's got the opportunity to come back to make some money. I don't think he's going to be a right away, go make a bunch of money in the NBA guy. So I've just assumed that, like DeJuan Harris, he'll be back. And I think it'd be, they'd be good. They'd be good. Would they be as good as they were this year when they were healthy?
Well,
it's hard to say because McCullough was really, really good when he was healthy. And again, they would be a little different, a little deeper. I would take either of these transfers certainly over Nick Timberlake and what he gave them this year.
No, there's no.
I still think they're a piece away, Paul. I still think they're a piece away.
Well, and I think you're right. There's that one more, and of course, Hunter Dickinson is also the key. You said earlier you have a feeling that he's coming back. I kind of get the same feeling because I'm not hearing a lot about what's going on with him. Now, if he was, thinking about it or whatever, we would know. I mean, that's the way the internet works anymore. You would know. So I have a good feeling. I have a good feeling with Hunter Dickinson. He's going to be back. And you're right. The money plays a big deal in this because Hunter Dickinson's at the University of Kansas, and he's going to be back for his last year. And if he does come back, and by the way, you're right. There's a good chance he can make more money at the University of Kansas than he can in the NBA at this point.
Sure.
With no guarantee that he would be in the NBA. But with that being said, if Hunter Dickinson comes back, particularly with the addition of Zeke Mayo, because Zeke Mayo, I can't overemphasize, he brings a number of things that the University of Kansas needs right now. Right now. he brings that size. He brings the ability to shoot. I mean,
Yes.
he's a 40% shooter from the three. He's almost a 50% shooter from the field. I'm telling you right now, that's a big deal. That's a big deal for the University of Kansas.
They have to have that.
They've got to. Yeah.
By the way, I would imagine between he and Kugel, like the Colby Rogers thing doesn't really make a lot of sense anymore. And I know we just had like a little selfish personal interest in that to see if that might happen, but that wouldn't make a lot of sense to me now. But yeah, I think the big thing is McCullough was such a great two-way player last year, but again, he was unavailable. So, do these two players make Kansas better than it was in the tournament? I don't think there's any question about that. Of course it does. Does it make them as good as they were at their peak this season, the team that was able to beat UConn? That's what would to be determined, I guess. I would like them to get another big that can come in and give them big minutes.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to play, because you may still be in a situation, they've got to figure out how to mix Adams and Dickinson together. That didn't go well, but it went well for a time this year. So again, Bill Self's got a lot to think about here. Decisions are going to be key, though, before we can think too far ahead on it. We don't know what Furphy's going to do. I would guess that he's going to declare for the draft, go through the process, and then make his decision, much like Kevin McCullough did last year.
Right.
And then you've got the two freshmen who, I mean, at this point, what would be holding them back from already entering the portal?
Right.
It's interesting to me that they haven't done that yet.
Right. Well, and the interesting thing about what you just said is with regards to Hunter Dickinson, that they need that one guy to come in. You got to get that guy to come in and spell him, give him a chance. But something, if you're a young man and you're looking at the portal, a lot of the kids that go into the portal want to go to their own school and be the man. Yeah. Be the man.
This isn't going to be the best big in the country or anything like that.
That's going to be my point because the really good ones, they're not going to go fight Hunter Dickinson is going to get his minutes. You're going to get his minutes.
Yeah, well, look, if Hunter Dickinson left, they would immediately get the best big in the country.
They just,
what I mean?
That's exactly right.
But I don't think he will, and I don't think you want him to either. I mean, he was just automatic in what he gave you, but it would be nice. And I'm trying to think of a good example historically for what if you could get Mitch Lightfoot back, a player like that who you trust in big moments, who can bail you out a little bit if need be. Like that's the kind of player I would say I could see them still going to try to find. I don't think that's going to be Zach Clements, who redshirted last year. His time at KU has been interesting. So I do think there's room. It's just where does it come from though? Because the roster is now technically speaking, if it's full. It's full as we wait on some of these decisions still. But we will continue to follow it. It's interesting to see them. They've been very active in the portal. They went and they got two really good players.
Yeah.
And we all love Zeke Mayo. That was one like Dickinson last year where it's like that makes too much sense not to happen.
Real quick.
And so nice job there.
Real quick. Furphy back.
50-50. I'll call it 50-50.
All right. Well,
if he works his way into the lottery, it would be a no. He won't. He doesn't get NIL money as an international player, Paul, which I learned recently. So if you can get into the lottery, you almost always have to take that opportunity, just sort of like Grady Dick did last year.
That's correct.
Even if as we're watching, we're like, boy, they could really grow under Bill Self. Like if you're going to get into the lottery, you got to take the opportunity. So I really do think it's 50-50. It depends on how his draft process goes. Now, the one thing I will say about the addition of the two players they brought in, it does allow for a little insurance if he left, because you'd like either one of those guys. Furphy is more icing on the cake to me. Like if Furphy stays and develops, it's going to be right. It's going to be amazing for that team. But I do think with the players they're bringing in, they can at minimum replace what he brought them this year. Can they replace his upside? I don't think so, but they can replace what he gave them this year.
Right.
I think, as we're trying to compare if Kansas is getting better or worse. All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk about the Royals last night. another big starting pitching performance. You kidding me with this starting pitching so far this year? We'll get Tommy Castor in a little later. We'll talk more about the vote that went the other direction on the Chiefs and Royals up there in Jackson County last night. Lots to come here on Sports Daily. It's Albracht and Savage. We'll be right back.
Time to get busy.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
All right, welcome back in. Let's do our first giveaway here. How about some Wind Surge Baseball returning opening day Friday at Riverfront Stadium? We have a 4-pack of tickets right now to any game that you choose. These opening weekend games would be a perfect opportunity. 4-pack right now to our first caller on the KFH hotline, 869-1240. Again, 4-pack Wind Surge Baseball returning. Opening day is Friday. They play through the weekend. Good luck, everybody, on winning some Wind Surge vouchers from us here at Sports Daily. Paul, the Royals last night, Marsh, another great start for Kansas City. 7 innings, couple hits, just a run, only 1 walk. He was outstanding. The bullpen was good, finally. I still don't trust Will Smith. I hope I'm wrong about that. I like Will Smith. I just don't trust his stuff based on what I saw last year. Schreiber continues to be really good for the bullpen. You know, if the starting pitching is going to be this good, and I don't think it's going to hold up to this level, they really, they need, 3 bullpen guys that they can count on with a lead?
Right.
We'll see if they can find that. There's a lot to play at. It's great to see him get a win against Baltimore. It's great to see, Michael Garcia with another 3 RBI in the game. Salvador Perez with another 2 hits in the game. Vinny Pasquantino, we're still waiting for him to pick it up. But there are a lot of positive signs for this team at 2-3 now, opening with a pretty brutal schedule. They'll get a really tall task tonight against Corbin Burns. But man, I think the early signs for this team are trending in the right direction outside of the bullpen, which again gave him a good night last night. But the starting pitching, Paul, like we talked about it all off season. The Bobby Witt Jr. extension was one thing. They spent a lot of money on this rotation, and it has delivered for them so far.
That's right. And you got to just be really, feeling good about a 3-hitter. I mean, the Royals 3-hitted the Oakland.
A great offense too, by the way.
It was a great offense, and Marsh looking really good. 7 innings pitched, and 2 hits. I mean, come on, this right now. That's what you're looking for. Now, can it continue? We'll see. But there's some signs, even though you're 4-2 overall, or I should say 2-3. Even though that's where you're at right now, I mean, there's some signs. There's some signs that you got to pay attention to the Royals right now. I think I will. I think I would. I think I am. I want to see if they can continue this. But they're having moments, and sometimes with the Royals, you don't even have the moments to grasp onto, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean. I know what I know right now is that this team has given us something to be excited about. That's, on the field. Now, off the field, there's an entirely different thing and conversation happening with this stadium now. I need to see, this is going to get dramatic, and we'll get into more of that in the second hour, but it's going to get dramatic with what happens with the Royals, because they did make the commitment we've all been telling them they needed to make this offseason. They spent a bunch of money, and they went out and they made sure that Bobby Witt Jr. is not going anywhere. And right now it's sort of playing itself out. I think if you're, that organization, you start with, we got to win some games again. I wonder if you took this same vote. Well, I mean, I think I know the answer to this. If you took the same vote about building a new ballpark downtown and all this stuff,
right,
when the Royals were coming off those World Series years,
I
want to say there would be momentum. But Paul,
that's right.
The Chiefs are a part of this, and they can't get the vote when the Chiefs are in one of the most historic runs of all time.
Right.
And you're also talking about 2 of the most marketable, What city can run out there guys like Bobby Witt Jr. and Patrick Mahomes to be the face of the sports in your city? I mean, you're talking about a gold mine there. And those two were on the front facing, commercials and everything for all of this. I know people think, okay, now they'll be more open and the dialogue will be better and it won't be so messy. But a 17% loss, I don't know what they're going to do to change this. We'll get back into that.
That's a good
point.
Take I want to talk about that. That's a good point.
We'll talk about it. You got some comments on it. We can take your calls on that vote if you're just joining us. We'll get back into it. It's a no on renovations to Arrowhead and a new Royals ballpark downtown Jackson County, and it's not close either. We'll get into it. Hour number 2 coming. Sports Daily right after this.
from Wichita's most listened to sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH. This is Sports Daily with Jacob Albracht and Tommy Castor.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Glad to be here with you. Paul Savage alongside me. I'm Jacob Albracht. Tommy Castor trying to make his way in sometime in this hour. Chad Chambers producing. He's got that the KFH hotline ready for you. We'll give away some HTO this hour. We gave away some WindSurge vouchers in the first hour. We'll do another set of WindSurge vouchers as well in this hour. So a lot to give away here on the show. Paul, we're talking a lot about this vote. Let's go back to it. So, we look at this and about 80,000 people there in Jackson County vote, and it is a resounding no. The drama of this has been more well documented up in that area. They feel like there was not a lot of transparency early on in the process, and then there was this late push by, the Chiefs to get in and all the star players coming out and, the vote yes, blah, blah, blah. Ken says that he thinks it's the rent on the district there plus the lack of transparency on the community benefits. I gotta, community benefits on these, we're always sold this, right? Oh, it's going to benefit the community. And it's like, okay, well, tell me exactly how that's going to happen. I don't mean the region. It's obvious what the benefit of having a professional sports team in your region is. But what about to the specifics of the people in Jackson County? Like what community benefits will they see?
Right.
And I don't know the details on it, but a lot of the time, you hear that XYZ is going to come in and they're going to spend money in your county and they're going to do all this stuff. And it's like, okay, well, let's prove it. Right. And sometimes that math gets a little skewed. There's nothing out there. All right. And there's not going to be anything out there. If you did this deal, it's not like all of a sudden all these businesses are going to pop up around Arrowhead and it's going to become this thriving new area of, people coming in and shopping and eating and dining in hotels. They're not going to do any of that, I don't think. If Arrowhead gets renovated, I don't think you're going to see any of that change. I think you'll just get more space around Arrowhead to do what you're going to do. Now, where some places are and they build these districts and it works out really well and it's really cool. I mean, maybe that happens, but if the Royals were to leave that area, Paul, you're talking about, 8 home NFL games. You'd have concerts and stuff out there, but is that enough to draw an entire entertainment district out to the middle of nowhere? I don't think so.
Well, therein lies the problem. Therein lies a big part of the problem is the fact that the number of events will be limited. With baseball, there's going to be 60, 70, depending on playoffs and all that kind of stuff. There's going to be 80, I don't know, maybe 90. You can have a bunch of home dates, and those activities are going to be. And if you got a good baseball team, you're going to have a bigger and bigger crowd. So therein lies the problem. That's a good way of putting it. But with the Chiefs, there's a lot of things that go on with the Chiefs that even though there's 9 home games, I guess, in most cases, 9 home games or more with the playoffs. But those are big events. Those are big events. Those are huge events. And I get it. I understand where they're at. And I also understand that people are getting so tired of being taken advantage of. And here was the chance where people said, we have a voice.
Yeah.
We get to say what we want to happen. And we're not going to be the patsies anymore for what you guys want to do. Here's what you're going to do. Go back to the drawing board, figure this out. And I'm sure this is what's going to happen. There's guys right now who've gone to work right this very moment, 10 o'clock in the morning, and people are going, what do we got to do? Let's get this figured out. Let's get a game plan in. How can we get this taken care of? I don't know that they're done revisiting this. They are going to revisit this entire situation. And there'll be something that'll come up. And I guarantee you it's going to have to do with, although the ownership from the Royals, they pledged $1 billion. $1 billion. That was with a B, Jacob. $1 billion on this project. But I've got a feeling it's going to take more than $1 billion. It's going to take more.
Well, it's going
than
to take
that.
more Chiefs money. It's going to take more Chiefs
Well,
money.
it might be
for
because
sure.
the Chiefs only committed
the Chiefs,
300 million.
300, yeah.
That's it. That's all.
300 million of an $800 million renovation committed. Now, this is where this gets into a little bit of the BS for me. Like, you can pay for more than that. Like, it's one thing to bring in and give all these incentives to a massive factory or somebody that's going to bring a bunch of jobs into your area, somebody who's going to help build that would cause a housing boom, like all these things. Like if a massive company comes in and wants to do business, like if Spirit Aero Systems wants to come in, yeah, there is definite community advantages to saying we're going to do what it takes to get you here because you're going to bring all these jobs in. That's real community money. Because when somebody works in that area, they spend in that area, they live in that area. That's a different scenario and these pro sports teams have tried to do this forever. And it's just not true. And I think people understand that now.
Right.
Like, you're bringing, part-time stadium jobs to the area 10 times a year.
Right.
And it's more than 10, 20 times a year.
Right. I got you.
Like what, like that's not real economic growth for the region. So they have taken advantage of for a long time. We know you guys love the Chiefs and love having them here. It's really amazing to have them here. We're going to need you to fund more than half of a new stadium that we get 100% of the benefit from, right? It's not like they share that money that they make in a new stadium.
No, that's right.
And so it just doesn't make financial sense. And if this was a business deal and not like a government type deal, it would never happen because somebody on one side of it would say, well, no, that's not worth my money.
Right.
It's not worth me putting in $500 million for you to build to renovate your stadium and make all the money. What do I get out of that deal?
Yeah.
And so that I think we're seeing that more now. And on the flip side, Paul, you've seen, owners in Denver, in LA, they're building their own thing. That's not public money. And that's the way it needs to be done.
Right.
Yeah.
And by the way, they're gorgeous. They are gorgeous.
They're state of the art,
They
world
are.
class.
They've got it all.
Well, at least one of them. They haven't done Denver yet, but LA is.
Yeah, let me kind of take the position of an average guy going to work right this very moment. And I live in Kansas City, and I'm thinking to myself, and let me ask you this. What do you think if the Royals were to go on to the market, they're going to be sold? What do you think off the top of your head the Royals would bring? Because I'm going to say 2.5 billion. Am I a little high on that?
It'd be a lot. It'd be a lot.
It'd be several billion. Is it safe to say that it'll be several billion at least? And
we have an apples and oranges situation here.
Right.
I think, Paul.
In a way,
the Chiefs aren't leaving the region. They're just not. And they can go to Kansas and nothing would impact them at all. Like fans are still going to show up. You have the exact same fans. The Royals, though, will be able to play a little more aggressive chicken on this.
Yes. Gosh, yes. That's right.
Because they would be a threat.
Yeah.
As a team that doesn't have great attendance the last few years, and the Royals, what's keeping John Sherman from moving the team? That lease is up in 2031, Paul. Like that's only 6 years away here.
Right. And we've seen,
I believe it's six fiscal years on their calendar. What's keeping John Sherman in Kansas City?
Well, and we've seen,
so his game of chicken is a little more. He got a little more here a little more ammo, I think, than the Royals are getting credit for.
Right.
All he has to do is say, well, you know what? Maybe we have to move to Nashville.
And I would believe him. Because, every time the Royals say, well, there's a chance we might move. And this isn't the first time. In fact, I remember a number of years ago when Major League Baseball was thinking, well, we've got to probably have to play with some franchise and kind of, close them down. Remember that was probably 5-10 years ago, I'm guessing. And the Royals were one of those teams. Minnesota was one of those teams, but you're right. John Sherman can do a lot of things. He can do a lot of things. Does he want to move? I don't think he does, or he wouldn't try to pull.
No,
this
I don't
deal.
think he does.
I don't think because he wouldn't get involved in all this stuff that got voted down and tried to build it. So I don't think he does. But I'll
They can also
guarantee-
go to the other side of the river into another county, which
Well-
was an option to begin with. It just wasn't their preferred option.
That's
Or
right.
they could make the same kind of move the Chiefs do and decide maybe they want to come over
Right.
to the state of Kansas. We've got Tommy here now joining us. Tommy, you haven't chimed in on any of this yet. You know this. I was stunned. I could not believe the vote was that resounding a no. At worst, we'd heard it would be close, but 17% on a big turnout to the no. I don't know how much wiggle room there's going to be here. I don't know what the Chiefs/Royals are going to be able to do outside of put forward a significant amount more money to make this happen. But what was your take when you saw that last night?
Well, I was kind of surprised at first. And then the more that I really thought about it, I realized that I had convinced myself that the Royals and the Chiefs, but primarily the Royals and John Sherman, I had convinced myself that they had done enough to get it across the finish line. And then the more I thought back to it and thought back to the entire process, I remembered all the different ways that this had been bungled, basically from day one, as far as the way that, things had been announced and all the infighting with local government and the different stadium sites and, trying to play them off of each other. And, the more that I thought back to it, I was like, well, wait a second. Why should we be surprised that this failed? And why should we be surprised that it failed so resoundingly? Because I don't know if it's as much about the citizens not wanting to support these franchises, but it might almost be more about the fact that from day one, there really was never a cohesive, well-explained plan. It was more like, if you think back to it, it was more like, hey, here are renderings. Look how beautiful they are. And we're not really quite sure of the way it's all going to come to fruition, but we're going to try to do everything that we can. Like, there really was not a well-explained blueprint on exactly the way this whole thing was going to play out. And so, yeah, I was surprised at first, but then the more that I started thinking about it, I'm like, okay, I kind of get it. I kind of get why the citizens are like, wait a second, you want us to continue a sales tax, and we're not exactly sure that you guys have really explained exactly how this is going to work and how this is going to benefit the county. So, yeah, now after this vote is done, I do understand why.
I'm going to give you both a prediction. Just trying to look at this and put myself in the shoes of Chiefs, Royals, whatever. I think they're gone. I don't think it's going to happen in Jackson County. I think if you're being honest with yourself and you're in their shoes, and yes, they handled it poorly, but when I see 17%, I don't know, outside of just paying for all of it themselves, in which they wouldn't really need a vote, right? You just let it expire. I don't think they're going to make up 17%. I think they screwed it up enough that, like, what are they going to do? Imagine being a no voter, right? So try to look at this from a couple of different ways. If you're a no voter, you're a no voter because you've probably taken the stand of like, you know what? I'm fed up with this. Pay for your own damn stadium, billionaires. I just don't think you're making up. Because what would it take? You'd need 10% of those people to change sides. More than half of those no voters, of the dissenters. So you need 10% of those people to flip, basically, to win that vote over what you just had. You've got 6 years to do it. You don't want to contribute more money. You know very well you could go other places that would contribute the amount of money that you want. I don't think that they're going to – I think they move on. I don't think they're going to do this again because I don't think they're – what guarantees do you have? You're running out of time. The thought of getting 10% of those people to change their mind doesn't seem very possible to me.
Well, here's what you got to do. I mean, if you're the ownership of the Royals, and you've already let's not forget, Jacob, that the Royals had pledged $1 billion from themselves for this $1 billion out of their pocket. And it's a $2 million plus. Probably it's going to end up probably being $2.5 billion. That's probably where it's going to come in at. So what do? Do you throw in another $500 million and say, okay,
no, they won't. I don't think
they will. And I'm with you on that. But that's your next step. But I don't think they'll make that step. So it could be that this has been sealed that the Royals are going to move, and whether it's just across the river, or whether it's to dreaded Nashville, because I'll guarantee you that's a city that would accept them with everything they got, and something like that. But the Royals at this point right now, I think they could end up going. They're going to go find someplace that loves them, because right now if I was John Sherman, Tommy, I'd have my feelings hurt a little bit. I would have my feelings hurt just a little bit, because I've been rejected. Remember all the girls in high school that used to turn you down when you asked them
That
for
never
things?
happened, Paul.
Do you remember that?
That never happened.
Now, how did your feelings feel?
That I don't have any context to tell you that.
But you get my point,
No,
Jacob. You get my point, though, Jacob. Somewhere along the line, somebody's going to take this personally. Somebody's going to say, "Wait a second."
Well,
but I have
I've
got no sympathy for John Sherman though in this, and it's not. I'm not mad at John Sherman. I don't feel bad.
What would you have done if you'd have been John Sherman, Tommy? What would you have done? What would you have done differently? Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
What would you have done differently?
I think that if John Sherman had approached this from a perspective of not a new stadium, maybe that was the end goal. And for sure, that was the end goal for John Sherman. But I don't think you necessarily have to say that out loud early on in the process. If more than anything, it's about, okay, we're going to work on renovations, or we're going to look at the future of the Royals. We're going to commit the Royals to the market for another 20 years or 30 years. And this allows us to do that, but without the major price tag of here's what a new downtown ballpark would cost. I mean, the bottom line is that Sherman was hell-bent when this whole thing first started of we're going to leave the K. We're not going to stay at Kauffman. That was never an option. It was never let's find a way to renovate or revitalize that area. Whether or not that's the right move, I'm not one to say. But he was hell-bent on, this is the way that I'm going to do it. This is the only option that I have, and the only option I'm willing to entertain. And it's going to take public dollars for that to happen. Like John Sherman kind of took a hard line on this from day one. Had he been a little bit more flexible, maybe a little bit more open-minded, a little bit more, hey, I want to preserve the Royals in the Kansas City market long-term, and I'm willing to do what it takes, regardless if it means a new downtown ballpark or not, but I'm going to need the public's help on just helping me commit to the Royals in Kansas City long-term. Yeah. That might've made a difference.
Yeah. That's a sense that Jacob, that's a sense that I didn't get in any part of the process, what Tommy was just talking about. And maybe I didn't quite understand it or follow it close enough, but I never did get the sense that what Tommy is talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. The Chiefs are I think that it's very likely. I shouldn't say that because I was way wrong about this no vote. I think it's a possibility, certainly, that you see a separation of Chiefs and Royals on this. Right now, they're tethered to the same lease.
Absolutely
that's going away.
That's going to go away.
So now, if the Chiefs coming in to save this deal wasn't enough, and it wasn't even close to enough, the Royals aren't going to get the vote that they need, certainly. Their only hope was that the Chiefs could come in and save that deal. And the Chiefs tried, quite frankly, to pull the wool over our eyes and say, oh, yeah, we fully support this. We're on board. We want to do this. And by the way, we only want to pay $300 to $800 million to do this.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing, too. Like when you asked me,
that was a misflex.
When you asked me my reaction on this, and I said, well, yeah, I was really surprised at first, but then when I started to think back to it, I'm like, why were we so surprised? Because,
right,
to your point, this was an overwhelming failure even before the vote when it was just the Royals. Like, I remember you and I, Jacob, having conversations on this show maybe a year ago about, billionaires paying for their own stadiums and how this was negatively viewed and all of that. And it took John Sherman to, I guess, go to Clark Hunt and say, hey, we need your help getting this across the finish line. Here's how it can benefit you. They had to go to the Chiefs to try to save them, and it still failed. So, yeah, looking back on it in retrospect, I don't know why any of us, and I'm including myself in this, why any of us were surprised that this failed so badly.
Because I thought people would be desperate, love the Chiefs, be excited about the Royals offseason, and be excited about the idea of a downtown ballpark. I miscalculated that. I misread the room and the temperature, probably not just specifically to Jackson County, but to the entire country, to say this is ridiculous, this is stupid, it's not worth it. It will never make financial sense from a business perspective for Jackson County to do this deal. They will never see the return on that money. Never. Not even close. Never. I mean, there have been study after study after study after study that these things financially do not make sense for these communities to do. That's not the only piece of it, though. There is also the cultural piece of it, of having the Chiefs and that is important. I'm not saying it's very important. Like, again, I'm in this weird space where, because I'm in the same camp. Like, I'm sick and tired of owners having communities build their stadiums. Build it yourself or share the profits of what it makes. If I'm footing more than 50% of the bill, I want more than 50% of the profits.
Mhm.
That's how a bank works. Go to the bank and ask them out of the goodness of their heart to give you that money and see what they say.
Right.
You know, like it just doesn't work that way. So at least charge them interest on the money if you're Jackson County, right? Okay, yeah, we'll front you that, but we need you to repay it, right? We're going to foot the bill for $500 million. You're going to pay us $500 million back plus 5% interest. That's what would happen in the real world.
Right.
Right.
It doesn't happen in these senses. So now I'm torn, though, because if you told me the Chiefs were seriously considering coming into the state of Kansas, I would want our state government to do things to help make that happen. So, because I think it would be great for the state of Kansas, and it's going to be that way, honestly, in any new community, because there is the enticement to get them there. Jackson County already has them there. They don't have that shine. They don't have that. And again, for fans, for Chiefs fans, none of this matters, by the way. Like, if the Chiefs played next to Sporting KC, if they played in if they played anywhere within an hour's drive, nobody's going to not be a Chiefs fan. They're still going to get people to come to the games. Like, nothing will change. The Royals are in a totally different boat. But I think when you see this overwhelming pushback, again, they lost by 17% to say, no, like, we're done paying for your stadiums. I don't think that's salvageable. And I think both of them separately are going to do different things moving forward. I don't think they're going to go back to the drawing board with Jackson County. That ain't going to happen.
Right.
Yeah. For all those people that are, really concerned that the Chiefs are going to leave the Kansas City Metro, I don't see that happening.
No.
I don't see that.
Because they can go to Kansas.
They can go to Kansas. Right. That's pretty simple. They can cross the border. They can build a brand new stadium. Will it be Arrowhead? No. There's an issue there for sure that needs to be worked through. But, they could easily go to Legends. They could build right by Kansas Speedway. They could build right by Children's Mercy Park, all of that. Keep in mind, the San Francisco 49ers play in Santa Clara, and they're still the San Francisco 49ers. My Atlanta Braves play in a neighboring county that's like 45 minutes away from Metro downtown Atlanta, and they're still the Atlanta Braves. Like, this sort of thing happens a lot. The Royals are a different story. Because I'm not, as we all know, the value for an NFL franchise, and specifically an NFL franchise at the level of success that the Kansas City Chiefs are, far different than the value of a Major League Baseball franchise, and especially one that has been down in the dumps for a number of years.
Right.
It wouldn't shock me if once that lease runs out at Kauffman, if we do end up seeing potentially the Royals go somewhere else.
And by the way, don't the Gents play in New Jersey?
Absolutely.
I think that's the case.
They share a stadium.
And
the Cowboys moved cities. The Cowboys used to play in Irving. They play in Arlington now.
Yeah.
Nobody cared.
And real quick, why you are right on Sherman, John Sherman, did you see his quote? His quote is, "We are deeply disappointed as we steadfastly believe that Jackson County is better with the Chiefs and the Royals." Get that, though? Deeply disappointed. I'm telling you what, there's some power in those words right there, Tommy.
This will be, the mayor is going to have, because if it's not going to be in Jackson County, I don't know if they'll be able to, John Sherman's going to be able to say, we'll just go on the other side of that river to that other site they proposed, which is in whatever that other county is.
Clay County, I think.
Yeah. That's where I think the mayor probably has to step in, because the Royals want to be in a downtown. So if you're the mayor now, That's who probably needs to step up here and say, what can we do from a regional perspective where we don't put this burden solely on one county? Like, what can we all collectively do here to make this work? I think it's beyond that. Either the Royals are in downtown Kansas City somewhere, or they're somewhere else. I don't know what the other solution is. I really don't. And I don't think they have the sort of sway they think they do, certainly. Chiefs can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
It's irrelevant.
I also want to point out very quickly that we've talked about this before. The allure of sports wagering in the state of Kansas, that's a huge part of it too,
Sure
and a big appeal, for a team like the Chiefs where the NFL has cozied up to sports wagering. Keep in mind, Missouri has not gotten on board with that. And between the stadium deal and the sports betting, I mean, yeah, if I'm the Chiefs, if I'm Clark Hunt, if I'm Mark Donovan, yeah, I'm going to call Lord Kelly. I'm going to call the governor of Kansas. What can we get
They've
done
already
here?
talked. I would bet you they've already talked.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And I know we're up against it, Jad, and I appreciate you letting us run a little heavy here. The other part for me too is, like, would the Royals be feasible out in that same across the border area? Would the Royals even want to do that? Like, would they want to be, out by the Speedway? I don't know that they would. I think they want to be in a downtown. So I don't even know that. I mean, I'm sure the state of Kansas would love to have the Royals. Don't get me wrong. I just don't know if the Royals are going to want that. I don't think that appeal is the same as it is for the Chiefs either. We'll take your calls on it, 869-1240. On the way out, let's give away our second set of WinSurge baseball vouchers. These will be good for a 4-pack, any home game you want. Remember, opening day is Friday in the Surge at home this weekend. 869-1240. First caller, get some WinSurge vouchers. Good luck, everybody. We'll be back with more Sports Daily after this. All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. We've got breaking news out of the NFL, a big one. The Buffalo Bills are moving on from Stephon Diggs. According to all the big reporters, he will be traded to the Texans, and they'll get like a second-round pick and a package back for him. So no more Steph Diggs in Buffalo. I think this is great news for the Chiefs. Buffalo certainly would not be as good without Steph Diggs. They also don't have Gabe Davis anymore. They really don't have anybody at receiver. Now they'll probably, draft very aggressively at that position and do some other things, but that's a big move. I think it's seismic in the landscape of the AFC. And fellas, Tommy, I think this is great news for the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I think as far as when you worry about the Bills, if they
Right.
don't have Steph Diggs, we know how that team has been without Steph Diggs, and it's not that good.
I've been saying it for a long time that in the current state in which the Bills were built, as far as ending last season, their window was closing. Now they still have Josh Allen, obviously, and he's young,
Right.
but a lot of the players around him, they needed to do kind of a hard reset. The defense was pretty old last year and injured a lot. And it seemed like there was always drama of some kind with Steph Diggs. So I'm not surprised that they made that move, and they were able to get a second round pick. And so I feel like that's a decent return, for the Bills. The Texans, I think, quietly under the radar have had probably the best offseason so far than any other team in the National Football League. I mean, they bring in Joe Mixon, they bring in Daniel Hunter. They've got obviously the young stars and CJ Stroud and, some of these other guys. And then they can obviously go and draft again. They were a playoff team a year ago. I've got no reason to believe that they won't be a playoff team this season. And, I think that they ought to be probably the favorite to win the AFC South. I'd put them above Jacksonville. I'd put them above every team in that division as of right now.
Yeah. I think I would too. I mean, I'm not in on Jacksonville certainly right now. Yeah, I mean, it would be Houston. Houston. This is a move, Paul, that makes sense, I think, on both sides. I don't think Bills fans want to come to the grasp and the reality that they just may not be good enough. But it's time in reality probably to move on from Steph Diggs. He's a really good player. For Houston, I mean, you're just adding to the pot a little bit in that. For a second round pick, even if Diggs only gives you a year, 2 years, I think for them who feel like their window is opening, that's worth it. And I would say this too, Paul, like that run they made last year was unexpected, and they had a great performance, obviously, from their young quarterback. It's not that long ago that we saw the Chiefs do a very similar thing, make a sort of surprise run, not be able to get over the hump, and then go ballistic. And the very next year, they won a Super Bowl. So I think if you're Houston, the timing on the aggression makes a lot of sense, Paul.
Well, it does. I mean, and I know there's an age factor, and I get that, and it's okay. But I'll tell you what, there's something about having a guy with the experience of a Diggs. I mean, it's good for a young quarterback. And guys, I honestly think that before this is all said and done, you've got a young quarterback at Houston that's going to be pretty darn good. And I think that you sign a guy like Stephon Diggs to the Texans, and man, it's a good thing. It's really a good thing. It's going to bring a little bit of stability. And he still has some ups. He can still make some plays, or they wouldn't bring him in to the Houston Texans. But I kind of like it. I think it's smart for the Texans. And of course, it's one of those forced things. I mean, if you've ever watched salary caps kind of decimate a team, well, the Bills this year have kind of been a textbook for that, haven't they?
Yeah. What can the Bills replace Diggs' production with rookies in the draft immediately?
No,
I'm not sure about it. You might catch lightning in a bottle, but there's a big upside on learning the craft of playing in the NFL.
There have been really, really good first-year receivers in the NFL just about every year now. Tank Dell was on that sort of pace last year. We, of course, saw Justin Jefferson do it, Jamar Chase do it. Like, that young receiver or receivers is going to come in and play with Josh Allen. I do think there's a chance that two, high early day wide receivers could make this offense better than what it had been toward the end there in Buffalo. I actually do think that's a possibility. I don't think it's ever been more ripe in the NFL for young receivers to find success immediately. We see it every single year.
But it's two different questions.
The Ram.
It's two different questions, Jacob, because, on the one hand, it's the question of, can a rookie wide receiver that the Bills draft replace the production of Stephon Diggs? I think the answer is probably no, at least in my opinion. But then there's the question of, can rookie wide receivers be better than what the Bills had in their passing game offensively a year ago? And I think the answer is probably yes. Like, I think the collection of them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You can do that.
I'm not
think
trying to,
one individual.
I'm not trying to put that burden
rookie
on
wide
one
receiver
player.
is
That's
going to be Stephon Diggs next year.
That's unfair. That's not what I'm trying to. I'm saying the collection of receivers is the potential for a collection of receivers, largely of which are most likely going to be young. I mean, if I told you this right now, if you could have traded Puka Nacua and Tank Dell for Steph Diggs last year, would you do it? Of course you would. So, it's out there. You got to get it right. But, you're basically going to reinvent that room. If even look at Rashee Rice, right? Like there, and that obviously has nothing to do with what he's dealing with right now. I'm just talking about production on the field. I get this if I'm the Bills. Like, I totally get it. Like, Diggs is, and Diggs is sort of a pain in the butt, right? Like he's always drama. To say we're going to get a second, and we're probably now for sure spending our first on a receiver. Maybe you spend both of those. I don't think that's a bad gamble for Buffalo. And I do think, while I think this is good news for the Chiefs, which is where we started, I think there's a world where it's bad news for the Chiefs, for sure.
Yeah, I get that. And I think that from a competitive standpoint, it's pretty easy to say that as of right now for this next season, the Texans win this one for sure. But I think the Bills, they know what they need to do. And I think that from a Sean McDermott point of view, the narrative and the perception of him is that he's had pretty talented teams and he's not been able to get them over the hump. And so, this is I think it's kind of a last ditch type thing for Sean McDermott. Is he on the hot seat? Probably going into this year, I would think. I think that as you start to unload players, the expectations change, but you still have Josh Allen and you still have, a guy that's got a tremendous arm and has had a ton of success. And so you've got to be able to produce with that. And I think at this point, McDermott and the front office, they recognize and they realize, okay, the only way that we're going to be able to take full advantage of the window that Josh Allen has in his career is to, start to plan for the future. And that's to move guys out like Steph Diggs and move guys out like Gabe Davis and others. So I get it. I understand why the Bills made this move. I do think the Texans win this one. And now you've got another team in the Buffalo Bills that more than likely, I would think, are going to be competition in the NFL draft to try to bring in a rookie.
And you got to, go ahead.
For sure. Yeah, there's no question about that. And they could also move up to go get one of the big names at receiver too. And maybe that's their intention. I'm not sure. And I agree, Tommy, the Texans are going to win this trade just for the simple reason that the risk reward was absolutely appropriate, I think, on a move like this with their window. And Josh Allen buys you, like Patrick Mahomes does and all the great, they buy you a longer window. Paul, if everything goes well for Buffalo in this and they draft, and like, are they Super Bowl contenders next year? Do you see any path to that for them? And it's ridiculous to say it because Steph Diggs he's a great player, but I think their chances go down. I think this hurts, but I wouldn't totally write them off as a Super Bowl contender at all.
How good do you think Josh Allen is?
Very good.
Is he Patrick Mahomes good? Not quite, but he's not bad.
Nobody is.
Nobody is. But I'll tell you what, you can't write off the bill. Anytime you've got a great quarterback who can put a ball where it needs to be, fit a ball into certain really small areas that makes the ball catchable. Anytime you do that, and anytime you can protect that quarterback, I can't say that you write anybody off. I mean, it takes a great quarterback. And if I was to make the comment, I think Josh Allen is at least a top 5 quarterback. Tommy, would you buy that? Because I believe that he probably is if I had to count him out.
I'd probably put him 5th
Okay.
fourth or fifth.
But he's in
yeah,
the top 5.
Sure.
And if you're going to contend for a Super Bowl, it's fairly important that you have that guy out of that category.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you have to.
That's right.
So again, like to me, I feel like from a Josh Allen point of view, this is the Bills wanting to make sure that Allen continues to be that top 5 quarterback.
Right.
For 5 years from now, 10 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
Will his production drop off without Steph Diggs and Gabe Davis? Yeah, probably for like this 1 year.
For a while,
but they're
but
extending.
not, okay.
I feel like they're extending
I got you.
that window, or at least trying to. We'll see if it pays off for him.
I mean, you just have Josh Allen better or worse stats than a year ago. I mean, if you're just looking at it statistically, I think it's probably pretty close. I also think there's a part of this, fellas, where the Bills were just ready to be done with Steph Diggs and dealing with it. I think that's absolutely a piece. All right, let's give away one final giveaway here. We'll give away some HDO iced tea and some coffee. You can get the iced tea at either Wichita East or West location or in Derby. More than 25 flavors to choose from. We'll also get you a new free reign coffee drink there available at HTO. That is good for East Wichita or in Derby. Good luck. First caller will get that giveaway. 869-1240. We'll come back. More Sports Daily right after this.
.97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Save big money on automotive products now at Menards. Good maintenance equals longer vehicle life. And Menards has the auto parts and mechanic tools from the most trusted brands to maintain your vehicles and keep you moving. Get superior engine protection with Valvoline Advanced Full Synthetic Motor Oil. It helps maintain fuel efficiency. Save big on Valvoline Motor Oil and check out our weekly flyer at Menards.com for all our deals happening now. Save big money at Menards.
They can buy the busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tournament. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a one seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. UConn still looking like a strong favorite to cut down those nets. That's $200. Use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/Leafs and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. That's FanDuel.com/LUTZ. Just visit FanDuel.com/Lutz and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. That's FanDuel.com/LUTZ. 21 plus and present in Kansas. First online real money wager. Only $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued is not withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Return to sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas and an agreement with Kansas Star Casino, LLC. Gambling problem? Getting help is your best bet. Call 1-800-522-4700 and visit ksgamblinghelp.com.
Truck Stuff knows what it takes to make your truck, Jeep, or SUV stand out from the crowd. Whether it's LED lights, a new bed cover, or steps, or getting your truck lifted or leveled, we've got you covered. Our experienced sales team can guide you through your options, and you can even have it installed by our experts. We offer interest-free financing through Snap, so come by today to get your ride tricked out or decked out. Either way, come check us out at 427 North Washington.
This March, Wendy's has some amazing deals on their hamburgers made with fresh, never frozen beef.
Like a juicy Dave single for $1 and a fresh $2 Dave's double with an app offer.
It's such a good deal, we wrote a little ditty about it. Get it for $1. Dave single, order the app. Dave single, get it for $1. Choose wisely, choose Wendy's official hamburger March Madness.
Limited time offer. Participating U.S. Wendy's. Offer details on redeem at Wendy's app. Account registration required. Fresh food available. Ticket is U.S. and West.
Mr. Electric's hand-picked team of licensed, certified, and background-checked electricians love what they do every day. For them, it's not a job. It's passion for getting out every day and fixing homeowners' electrical problems. Doing electrical work right the first time and knowing that they have the power to make things better for you and your family. That's Mr. Electric. Schedule an on-time appointment by visiting MrElectricWichita.com.
If you're looking for the most epic place on earth, let's start at the base of a massive waterfall. Then trek through the thick jungle. Then climb to the peak of a snowy mountaintop. Then once you get there, keep going. Because with intelligent 4x4 and 7 drive modes and a Nissan Pathfinder, the search is the real adventure.
Available feature. Intelligent 4x4 can prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. Always monitor traffic and weather conditions.
Thanks for calling Discover. This is Gabby.
Hey, Gabby. It's Jennifer Coolidge. Hi. I'm so glad I reached you at 2 a.m.
Oh, of course. Anyone with a Discover card can call and talk to a real person 24/7. Now, how can I help?
Yeah, I used my Discover card to buy these yellow pleated pajamas, and I'm just not sure I'm pulling them off.
24/7 U.S.-based customer service. It pays to Discover. Limitations apply. Learn more at discover.com/creditcard.
Mom, I got the job in Manhattan. Do you have a warm enough winter coat? And what about your car? I'm selling it with Kelly Blue Book Instant Cash Offer. How?
I enter my license plate number, miles, condition, upload photos, and boom, an official cash offer from the local dealership.
A cash offer instantly? Oh, did you call Aunt Stella? She's right there in Massachusetts.
Mom, I literally just got the job.
Not everything is as simple as selling your car with Kelly Blue Book Instant Cash Offer. Price it, fix it, trade and sell it. KBB.com.
Space may be the final frontier, but it's also what a lot of us lack in our basement or garage. By switching to a Navien tankless water heater, not only will you have all the hot water you need whenever you need it, but you'll gain storage area as well. Maybe a place to display your space collectibles. Highly logical. Learn about Navien's series of high-efficiency tankless water heaters and how they don't just save space, but save dollars on your utility bills too. For more, go to tanklessmadesimple.com.
Dude, you gotta hear this.
Go ahead. If you want to hear this. Sports Daily is on KFH.
Brought to you by Crestview Country Club. Glad to be with them on board here, where Tommy and I spend a lot of our recreational time out with the family. I saw a little sunshine, Tommy. Now, explain to me what it takes weather-wise for you to get out there and tee it up. Crestview, of course, has 2 courses, so sometimes you can just get out there kind of anytime you want. But what is your required golfing weather? Because mine's near perfect because I don't get to play as often as I'd like. I'm not going if it's cold. I don't really want to go if it's windy. What is it for Tommy, who's a much bigger golfer than I am?
Well, if you're waiting for a perfect day, I mean, in this part of the country, you've got like 4 of those a day. Like when there's when it's warm enough, but it's not blazing hot and it's not windy and not super humid. So, I mean, really, you have to sort of make some compromises. I've got a friend of mine that I golf with occasionally out at Crestview, and he's got a rule of thumb that I've started to adopt as mine. 40 and rising. That is his philosophy. So if it's 40 degrees outside,
wow.
If it's going to stay 40 degrees or go lower than that, then no, like it's not going to happen. But if it's 40 and rising, like 8 a.m. and it's 40 degrees, but by 11 it's going to be 65. Then at that point I can deal with the cold weather to get things started because I know it's going to warm up as the round goes on. So 40 and rising is kind of my philosophy. But really, even I think more than the temperature, it's the wind. If the wind is like it was today or a couple of days last week when it's gusting to like 50 miles an hour, at that point it's not even worth it because I mean there's no point in even trying to play. That's kind of my
40
philosophy.
and rising right now, 46 and rising up to a balmy 52 at 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
But
if I wasn't doing this right now, I might be out on the golf course.
Well, there better be no clouds on that. There better be no clouds. I mean, you got to have
sunshine to help.
You
Sun helps.
Sure. Sun helps. Sun helps.
Look, you look out there sometimes where like it's cold, we're in the restaurant. Basically, anytime there are people out there golfing. So Crestview has 2 courses for you, 18 holes, north and south course. Get out there, check it out, give them a call. It's a lot of fun out there. Tommy, we real quick, the KU basketball movement yesterday, technically speaking, there's not a spot open. I think most of us think there is at least one more coming, but KJ returning was a question. He answers that question. Zeke Mayo is an addition that at least I think helps offensively make up for what they'll lose in Kevin McCullough. But Paul and I are sort of in the camp that they need a little bit more still in this offseason. What say you?
Well, I think they do. And I think that it's going to come down to depth, and not just depth, but effective depth for Bill Self. And as of right now, I mean, I'm not sure that they've got really any room left as far as scholarships. There might be some more movement as of right now. There's probably going to be some more movement. But I do think that they're in need of that. we talked yesterday after they landed Riley Kugel, the Florida transfer, that they got more athletic. They added a great shooter in Zeke Mayo, which they were also lacking last year. There was really not a go-to shooter on the team. So you would imagine, at least I would think, that Zeke Mayo slides into the 2 and that Riley Kugel probably slides into the 3. And then you've got DeJuan at the 1, KJ Adams at the 4, now that he's coming back, and Hunter Dickinson, if he returns, at the 5. But I do think that they need to continue looking at, backup depth at the big position. And especially if Hunter Dickinson doesn't return, then you really have a hole there and you've got to try to figure that out.
Sure.
So, but I
you're
do
right
think
with us. That's
they,
what we said too.
They have improved their athleticism. They've improved their shooting. That's what they needed more than anything else, but it doesn't mean that they're done.
Well, and if Furphy comes back, they've improved their depth as well with Kugel. But yeah, we're with you. We would like to see them get somebody in there to help down low, because the direct combination of Adams and Dickinson was slightly vulnerable. Who could you get? It's not going to be the biggest name out there in the portal, but is there a player out there that can sort of, I used Mitch Lightfoot. Is there a player out there that can give you Mitch Lightfoot minutes? Like that can help you in the ways that he helped them for so many years. That's what I'm curious to see. Of course, we all got our attention on, the 3 freshmen, Furphy, Jackson, McDowell. Are all of them coming back? Are any of them coming back? Dickinson's got to come back. He'll make more money at Kansas. So that one, I think we're just waiting for the announcement. But a lot of movement on the KU roster. We'll get into that throughout the days here. We've got a lot coming up on the networks today to sort of get with you about. We'll do that next. I'll lay it all out for you when we return on Sports Daily. All right, everybody, that does it. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We've got Dean, a winner of some HTO, Mike and Bruce winning some Wind Surge tickets. Thanks for your participation. So the Royals play at noon right here on KFH. If they go, there's bad weather in Baltimore. It's being debated right now among Royals followers and writers that if they'll play in Baltimore. If they do, it'll go at noon. KU taking on Wichita State. Shockers trying to bounce back from a loss last night. Coverage there with Mike Kennedy begins at 5:45. We'll come back tomorrow. We'll talk a little K-State. Plenty to get to. More fallout, I'm sure, from this vote up in Jackson County. We'll do it all. For Tommy, for Paul, for Jad, I'm Jacob. See you then.